Alright guys, what is up, and just making sure everything's working. Let me actually turn up the mic just a tiny bit. I don't know why. Let me actually see if there is a possible way. Well, I'll do it after the stream. Why am I streaming so late? I don't know. I've been planning to stream all day, and I wanted to hold myself to it. So, we're doing a little bit of a late stream. I have a little bit to drink, but other than that, we're going to be discussing the events in Kazakhstan that have been happening over the past couple of days as of right now. So there was actually a large event that happened today, January 5th, well, yesterday technically, in Kazakhstan, in which the entire government of Kazakhstan resigned. And we are, so if I can actually see, growing discontent with the government and former President Nursultan Nazarbayev also influenced larger demonstrations, as there are no popular opposition groups against the Kazakh government. The unrest appeared to be dissembled directly by the citizens. In response, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev declared a state of emergency in the Mangyatsu region and Almaty, which is the largest city in Kazakhstan, effective from January 5th. The Mamin cabinet resigned the same day, so effectively there is no government as of right now, as of today or yesterday, in Kazakhstan. Now, there is an article from the New York Times, and since we are loading into the game, I will go ahead and switch this over so you guys can see what's going on in my game. We'll continue to read. We have an article from the New York Times. Let's go ahead and exit that. We will assess the financial situation of Kazakhstan. And we will continue to read on this article. So we have a 7.25% deficit as of right now, January 1st, 2021. We spend the most on Social Security, and then education, Homeland Security, defense, and then debt reimbursement, though thankfully we are not in too much of a stringy debt situation as of right now. However, we do need to work to get that deficit down. So this article from the New York Times, the Kazakh president has requested the CSTO, it looks like, because they are, Kazakhstan is a Russian, so the article reads, Russia allied forces to intervene as unrest sweeps Kazakhstan. The Kazakh president requested peacekeeping forces, peacekeeping troops as an uprising sparked by a gas price increase in the resource-rich Central Asian nation headed toward a 5th day. So it's been going on for 5 days, and we are already looking at a Russian intervention by, I believe it's, so I'm reading it right here. The Kazakh president, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, issued the invitation earlier in the evening, yesterday, calling the demonstrators a band of international terrorists. He said that he was turning to Russia's version of NATO, called the Collective Security Treaty Organization, to help Kazakhstan overcome this terrorist threat. The revolt began on Sunday in western Kazakhstan as a protest against the surge in fuel prices. 4 days later, with government buildings, TV stations, and the airport and numerous businesses stormed by thousands of anti-government protesters, the uprising has expanded into a full-throated attack on the entrenched Kazakh elite, widely reveled as autocratic and corrupt. Footage posted online on Wednesday showed thousands of people storming the main government building in the country's largest city, Almaty. Smoke billowed from the building that afternoon as the crowd began to disperse. The regional branch of the governing Nur-Oltan party was also set on fire. Local news outlets reported, as was the former presidential residence. News services reported renewed clashes between protesters and police, who used stun guns and tear gas grenades to quell the crowd. Protesters were also set fire to the prosecutor's office in Almaty. We're heading for the president's residence. The Almaty police said that protesters burned 120 cars, including 33 police vehicles, and damaged about 400 businesses, and that more than 200 had been detained. The country's internal affairs ministry said that 8 members of law enforcement had died in the clashes, and local news media reported that the police opened fire on demonstrators in the oil city of Atyaru, killing at least 1 person. We actually have a picture of the city hall of Almaty under attack by, not under attack, I'm not going to use that language yet, but being stormed effectively by citizens of Kazakhstan. Let's look at the chat real quick. Tip on creation of political coalitions. Make sure the party is of a similar political ideology to you. I think the political ideology video will also serve as like who should you do a coalition with. Effectively, biggest thing that you shouldn't do is like if you're a far right-wing party, then you shouldn't make a coalition with a far left-wing party. Is my 2 cents. Yes, the #1 exporter of potassium. All other countries have inferior potassium. Kazakhstan, let's go. Country nobody talks about. Oh god, power vacuum in Kazakhstan, revolution in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is a former USSR state. I know that, yeah. I mean, you know what the USSR looked like. I mean, it's one of the largest countries of the former USSR, and it's also the largest landlocked nation in the world. Ah, yes, the legislative elections. Are we president? Okay, so we don't have to worry. Eight days, and we have 8 days to shore up enough support. Hang on. Free multi-party system. Y'all are very quiet today. I mean, it is also pretty late. It's like almost 11 o'clock on the East Coast. Get moving. Let's go over to taxation. And we have a lot of taxes, don't we? Tax on petroleum and energy products. I wonder if we can increase this. I bet nothing would go wrong. If we were to do that. Always give the people more freedoms to shore up support. What I can actually do, we can go over here to media. Oh my god, under state control propaganda. Let's do 5% to 5G mobile internet. Actually, 10%. That should get us a crap ton of support. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Leads with 90% of the vote intention.
It would be advised.
Wow. I always give more people support, more freedoms to shore up support. We will actually democratize. That is actually probably the plan for here. RG overthrew Biden last night. You should try that too soon. Hell yeah. Do you really believe that this only happened because of gas prices? Something tells me there's more behind it than like COVID restrictions and so on. That is the New York Times article right there that I was reading. That is not what I was saying, but there was
must confess
there was a big there was a big thing about it where it basically said like there was a gas price. So I'm looking right now. The protests began peacefully Sunday in the oil town of Zana Ozen after the government doubled the cost of liquefied petroleum gas used to fuel vehicles in Kazakhstan to about 100 tenge, or 22 cents per liter. By the time the government announced on Tuesday that it would rescind the price the price increase. The protests had already spread across the country with broader demands for increased political representation and improved social benefits. Apparently unsatisfied by the announcement early Wednesday that the entire government would be sacked and a new parliamentary elections were possible, protesters took control of the country's main airport. Protests reverberated across the continent to Moscow, where President Vladimir Putin was forced to witness another uprising against an authoritarian, Kremlin-aligned nation following pro-democracy protests in 2014 and in Belarus in 2020. Protests represent a warning signal for the Kremlin, said Arkady Dubnov, a Central Asia expert in Moscow, describing the government in Kazakhstan as a reduced replica of the Russian one. He added, there is no doubt that the Kremlin would not want to see an example of such regime begin to talk to the opposition and conceding to their demands. Timing is particularly awkward for Putin, who hopes to use 3 meetings next week with Western delegations to renegotiate post-Cold War international security agreements on Ukraine and what Russia considers its sphere of influence in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Revolt also seemed to mark a decisive break from the rule of Kazakhstan former President Nursultan Nazarbayev, who stepped down as president in 2019 but had still kept a hand in the country's affairs. I remember whenever that actually happened, I was surprised whenever he stepped down, but it kind of makes sense that, you know, he's just like, because he was basically president. He was basically president since the Soviet Union collapsed. But then he's just like, nah, man, I'm just gonna keep my hands in the cookie jar. You never, every time these people say they're gonna take their hands out of the cookie jar, they never take their hands out of the cookie jar. 53. Let's see what Parliament thinks. Pretty sure I actually could have gone a couple more inches on that. But we are a parliamentary system. Like I'm increasing taxes in Kazakhstan right now. It's exactly what I'm not supposed to do. Is power and revolution. We are apparently a religious authoritarian regime controlled by the United Communist Party. What is the main religion in Kazakhstan? Sunni. They're Islamic? Hang on. Are we a part of the League of Arab States? I figured we were not. Hang on, where's Comoros? LAS. Okay. Oh, wow. I didn't know Comoros was in the game. Are they actually a country? Huh, you can actually play as Comoros. Get them gas prices down, son. How are you doing, Nathan? Random dude on the internet. What's up? David, what's up? Never seen David here. You should try to get democracy in China sometime. Hell yeah. I want to get thrown out really easily.
The household.
Ooh, I wonder what happens if I sign a free trade agreement with the United States. And actually, I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to go for. So let's go over to the free trade agreement. Let's go to reciprocal. Reduce those trade barriers with the United States. You make money off of oil. Legislative elections begin tomorrow when 13.4 million voters are going to the polls. For inception, situation is alarming in Kazakhstan, so we're gonna have to...
Good evening.
Let's see. Yeah. We're gonna get like 85% of the vote on this. Oh crap, it's a 2-round system. Come on, why are you guys always 2-rounders? Oh, it's a first round. Go to the second round. 62%. I wish they need to make a law in here where you can basically have like compulsory voting or not. Let's see, 50 million per sector. Ooh, that really... Yeah, public finances ain't doing that well. Fun fact, I did a project in Comoros for my social studies class a few years ago. Hell yeah.
I'd like to...
Maybe we should also develop our tourism. There needs to be a more direct hand for you to actually make tourism adjustments. Because literally, I don't know how to affect tourism in this game. Alright, look at this. Free trade agreement between the United States and Kazakhstan. We have a reciprocal commercial contract which affected sectors limited to a portion of the partners' dominant sectors. Tariffs are reduced between the two countries at 50%. Control of goods at the border is light, and no regulations are imposed between the two partners.
The bill has...
How long has this been live? I didn't get a notification. I've been live for about 17 minutes. 17 minutes. We are discussing. Second round begins tomorrow. We are in the middle of... Oh! How many days are we in 2021? 16 days, and we already got protests across the country. Demonstration against misery. Very relatable to what's going on now. And while we were watching this, I believe Kazakhstan is in the daytime. Let me actually see. Alexa, what time is it in Nur-Sultan, Kazakhstan? Yep, it is. Alexa, never mind. Alexa! Oh my god. Shut up! I love to suck your toes, hell yeah. I've seen your post on poll. That's I don't know. I was on poll? When was I ever on poll? Alright,
Good evening. The time has come. The preliminary results are in.
Trade deals with the United States. You're sure to avoid the color revolution at this rate. Oh my god, that's one of my favorite jokes so far right now. But while we were playing this, we are also going to be 86 out of the 98 seats altogether. Does Kazakhstan needed? Not yet. And that's what I am paying attention to. We are watching... Essentially, we're watching to see what's going on in Kazakhstan. I really want to kind of pay attention to it throughout the stream. Is it election time already? It was a parliamentary election. I'm pretty sure we lost a couple of seats. Well, actually, it kind of looks the same. But we're still communist, unfortunately. I'm trying to research and I landed here. Are you serious? No. If you're new here, essentially, like I like to talk about like what's going on in the world. So I thought this was a really good time to talk about what's going on in Kazakhstan. So essentially, this is just a game in which I'm playing as a country, and while we're playing as the country in question, then we get to talk about what's going on there. Interesting chat tonight, isn't there?
As we
62% turnout. I'm going to continue to read this article.
purchasing.
But essentially, if you're researching about it, what we know so far, cool concept, my steel, hell yeah. What we know so far about what's going on in Kazakhstan is essentially, so like 2-3 years ago, back in 2019, the president of Kazakhstan that served from the fall of the Soviet Union after the constitution of Kazakhstan was created, and everything, you know, got settled in Kazakhstan after the Soviet Union collapsed. Kazakhstan elected this guy named Nursultan something. And Nursultan Nazarbayev, hearing that pronunciation there. So he served from like the early 90s after Kazakhstan became independent all the way to 2019. However, whenever he stepped down in 2019, essentially he kind of still had his hands in the cookie jar, where he was basically like, you know, you know, I'm gonna step aside, but since I'm not dead yet, then my hands are still gonna be, you know, going around. So he still effectively controls the party. This is just kind of like one of those other revolutions in these post-Soviet countries. You know, we saw it in Ukraine in the Orange Revolution in 2004, and then we also saw it in the Winter Revolution in 2013, 2014. They called it the Winter on Fire, but I'm pretty sure a lot of us remember what happened in Ukraine back in 2014. Was this thing that's been going on in Kazakhstan, or was this setting? What this was sudden? This was kind of everything that happened just now, like what you're seeing now with the government stepping down and the intervention by the CSTO. All of this is kind of sudden. This is all like, we got into the new year, and then the government announced saying, hey, we're going to increase this tax on petroleum products, and everyone was like, no, fuck you, we're not going to do that. And so, you know, they go in to this city right here, Almaty, and then they, I mean, ironically, a year after the demonetized, I can't even say it, what happened in Washington, D.C. a year ago today, about like maybe 2 hours from it being the anniversary of it. But Tristan, what's up? It's more just some sort of a backlash, I guess, against these authoritarian regimes that have ruled over Central Asia, just these post-Soviet governments. And again, they tried in Belarus, like what, 2 years, like 2 years ago, 2020, after that presidential election, and then in, I think they tried in like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. I haven't heard anything. I think the same thing also happened in Tajikistan. I think something else was happening in Tajikistan not too long ago. And then Georgia didn't really have that much of an issue. However, they still have the issue of, you know, South Ossetia and Abkhazia. So it's a very complicated situation. But anyway, let's go ahead and come over here, taxation. Let's go ahead and play a little bit just in case I made any decisions. We'll see what the reaction is going to be. Just a lot of shit about my internet.
Although
PG, the stream keeps pausing. I don't see it happening on my end. Might be on your end. Because I have a playback of it happening right now, and I don't see any buffering. They're just going a couple of days. Seeing what's happening. You think Russia will use it as a pretext to annex the country or part of it? Kind of sounds stupid, but hey, you never know. But I highly doubt it. I'm pretty sure Russia would face international condemnation and more sanctions. CSTO 100% is going to step in to stabilize Kazakhstan, but annexation of a non-Slavic region would be outside of Russia's MO. Yeah, I actually agree with what Steven says. Essentially, the CSTO is already getting involved. The president of Kazakhstan has already asked the CSTO to get involved, and I believe that Russia is already organizing a relief effort for the Kazakh government. So we are already seeing CSTO intervention. Just a matter of when that intervention will arrive. I think I can sign a free trade agreement with the United States. Good lord, why is that free trade agreement so goddamn high? It's actually worth more than my free trade agreement with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Let's actually see. Am I a part of the... Look. We are. Yep, we are part of the CSTO. We see it in game right here. Headquarters is Moscow, created in 2002. 6 member countries, total population 192 million. Total GDP is worth $1.77 trillion. Defensive effectiveness is 2 stars out of 5. President country is Kyrgyzstan. Jesus PG, due to the amount of conflicts in the south. Yeah, let's get involved. Oh my god, what the hell is action? What the hell is happening in Afghanistan? How many? Hang on. Oh hell yeah! Look how fucked Afghanistan is. I've never seen Afghanistan fall. You know, that's going to be very interesting in the 2022 edition whenever we finally can play as the Taliban in Power and Revolution. We're actually going to raise some money real quick with the industrial pollution tax. Total debt seems to be going up. Next quarterly loan is apparently going to be worth over $1 billion. 2022 edition needs to hurry up. I'm pretty sure we will not be seeing it until summer, unfortunately. Okay, let's go ahead and continue reading this article while we play the game. Timing is particularly awkward for Putin, who hopes 3 meetings next week with Western delegations to renegotiate post-Cold War international security agreements on Ukraine and what Russia considers its sphere of influence in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. The revolt also seemed to mark a decisive break with the rule of Kazakhstan's former president Nursultan Nazarbayev, who stepped down as president in 2019 but still had a hand in the country's affairs. Video footage shows protesters toppling a statue of Mr. Nazarbayev in the capital of the Almaty region, Taldy Korgan, with people chanting Shalket, Kazakh for old man leave. He has played no role in combating the protests, leaving that to his hand-picked successor, Mr. Tokayev. While initially conciliatory, the government has taken a steady, harder line against the protesters, imposing a strict state of emergency throughout the country. Mr. Tokayev said Wednesday that he will assume all former levers of power and promised to act with maximum toughness. Kazakh Telecom, the country's largest telecommunications company, shut off internet access throughout the country on Wednesday afternoon. Kazakhstan, with a population of 19 million, is by far the richest country in Central Asia, with a GDP per capita of 27,000 and more than 35 billion in reserves. Yet it is still possible for the country to devolve into chaos in a matter of days. Instability is a potential source of concern among foreign oil companies, particularly in the United States. ExxonMobil and Chevron have invested tens of billions of dollars in western Kazakhstan, the region where the unrest began this month. The Chevron-led consortium is in the midst of a project to expand the output at the on-land Tengiz oil field at an estimated cost of $37 billion. Jesus Christ. One of the single largest energy investments in the world today. Many Kazakhs were incensed by the increase in gas prices because their country is not just the recipient of tens of billions in energy investments, but also an exporter of oil and gas. The price rise added to the economic misery in a country where the coronavirus pandemic has helped underscore severe income inequality. Mukhtar Umbetov, a rights activist who took part in protests in Aktau, said that while the turmoil may have been sparked by economic grievances and the pandemic, the root cause was the absence of democratic processes. The Kazakh government, he said, has removed all legal ways to participate in politics. Dude, Taliban playthrough can't be any more morally wrong as playing as China. Jesus Christ. Let me see. Almaty City? Seriously? They just put city in there? South Kazakhstan. What about Akmola? Okay. Let's see what the stats right here. 19.3 million population, $171 billion GDP. And we are auto-saving right now. Speaking by phone from Aktau on the Caspian Sea, he said that the people don't have any political intermediaries who solve problems that exist in the country. Nevertheless, he said, in a country where the average salary is $570 a month, and where many earn considerably less than that, economic resentments are not to be discounted. Right? Kazakhstan is rich, but its natural resources are not working in the interests at all. They work in the interests of a small group of people. Let me pause this. As the protests have unfolded, the demands of the protesters have expanded to include broader political liberalization. Among the changes they seek is the direct election of Kazakhstan's regional leaders rather than the current system of presidential appointment. Much of the ire has been directed at the country's autocratic ruler, Mr. Nazarbayev, who led the country for 30 years after independence in 1991. Okay, so it was in 91 whenever he got elected, or yeah, I guess elected. I mean, yeah, I think he was elected. I'll have to look. Mr. Tokayev became president after the elections derided by Western observers as flawed. After that, Mr. Nazarbayev was formally recognized as a leader of the nation, and the country's capital was renamed Nur-Sultan in his honor. Until now, he has been widely regarded as a shadow leader of Kazakhstan, despite the former transition of power to Mr. Tokayev. But that appears set to change. On Tuesday, Mr. Tokayev dismissed Samat Abish, Mr. Nazarbayev's nephew, from his position, a first deputy head of the country's National Security Service, successor to the KGB. And on Wednesday, Mr. Tokayev replaced Mr. Nazarbayev as the head of the country's Security Council. I remember that. I remember whenever he stepped down, and I remember that they put him on the Security Council. I couldn't remember what that was, but I knew that he still held some sort of position in the Kazakh government. So Kazakhstan has always been this country in in Central Asia. I don't know why. I think it was because there was one time in middle school, whenever they had all of these national flags or whatever, it was kind of like some like geography lesson, and they had them like hung up in the cafeteria. And I remember looking at Kazakhstan. I think it was Kazakhstan, or let me look. It may have been Argentina, but I remember seeing Kazakhstan's flag, and Kazakhstan has this very interesting flag right here, and I really like the design of their flag. And so I remember seeing this flag, and I was like, why does that flag look so cool? And then so I looked a little bit into it. And after that, I mean, I've just always had this interest in Kazakhstan, and it's actually really funny. I never watched Borat until after Nazarbayev stepped down as president of Kazakhstan. So if you're wondering, like, what about where does Borat play into all of this? I actually never watched Borat. I knew who Borat was, but I never watched Borat. Alright. Sorry about that. I was getting a drink. Jordan apparently wants a meeting. We also need to figure out what we're going to do with this oil, if I can actually sell it to anyone. Maybe I... Whoa. A third country, which could lead to further conflicts. Building housing and roadway. Let's look. Well, we actually might get a lot of approval off this. Let's invite the President of the United States over for a meeting. Famine in Eritrea and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. What's new? So let's continue to read.
The bill
has been voted on. So let's continue to read. Speaking of that, the unrest, Mr. Tokayev assured that the protests were highly organized as part of a meticulously thought out plan of conspirators who were motivated financially. He said that people had been killed and wounded, and that crowds of bandit elements beat and mocked servicemen, took them naked through the streets, abused women, and robbed shops. The countries of the former Soviet Union are watching the protests closely. For Russia, the events represent another possible challenge to autocratic power in a neighboring country. Russia intervened militarily in Ukraine in 2014 after pro-democracy protests erupted there. The Kremlin offered support to the Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko as he violently crushed peaceful protests against his autocratic rule in 2020. The Kremlin currently has, quote, peacekeeping forces stationed in the Transnistria region in Moldova, as well as the contested territory of the Nagorno-Karabakh region in Armenia and Azerbaijan, as well as supporting Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine. It also occupies parts of Georgia and Abkhazia. That's the end of the article there. And we also have the Wikipedia. We can go through day by day, so you guys know exactly what's going on, what has been happening over the past couple of days before everything that happened today. Let's continue. The hell? Did I just accept the meeting? Oh my god, we had the parliamentary elections just now, and hang on. Head of state. Let's go to country. Yeah, look at that. The Constitution wasn't signed or signed into law until 1995. So executive body, 7-year term. Good lord. Lower chamber is 5 years, 98 seats, and the next election is going to be held in 2026. So we have a lower chamber and an upper chamber. So we have a bicameral legislature. Isn't Kazakhstan part of Russia? I don't know. Apparently to the Russians if they actually get the CSTO involved. Okay. So on January 2nd, 2022, the residents of the city of Zanauzen blocked roads in protest against an increase in gas prices. From there, the protests called on the Akim of Manyatsu, Erlan Nogayev, and City Akim Maslet to take measures in stabilizing prices and preventing fuel shortages. They were met with acting who advises the crowd to write a complaint letter to the city administration, which the protesters recalled that their complaints were supposedly ignored by city officials. January 3rd, hundreds of residents gathered and camped in the city square overnight, as well as other residents joined the crowd. By the afternoon, an estimated 1,000 people were at the square, chanting and demanding direct elections of local leaders. Police officers, while standing at the perimeter of the square during the demonstration, did not intervene. Mayatsu Akim Nurlan Nogayev and Zanauzen Akim Maslat Garab, I'm just not going to say these names, as well as Kazakh gas processing plant director, attempted to calm the protesters by arriving at the square and pledging for their gas prices to be reduced down to 85 to 90 tenge, which failed to appease the demonstrators, as well as his companies were forced to flee the square by the angry crowd. President Kasim Jomart Tokayev, his Twitter response regarding to the situation, had instructed the government to consider the situation, taking into account the economic feasibility in the legal field, as well as he also called on the demonstrators to not disturb public order, reminding that Kazakh citizens have the right to publicly express their voice to local and central government by saying it should be so in accordance with the law. A government commission headed by Deputy Prime Minister Irlay Togjanov was formed to consider socioeconomic situation in Manyatsu. Yay, Monopoly, hell yeah. Is this real life or are you playing as Kazakhstan? This is real life that I'm talking about. This is why we're talking about, that's why we're playing as Kazakhstan, and then we're talking about it at the same time. That's basically the topic of this whole stream, is about what's going on in Kazakhstan. And then essentially, reports of arrests were received from the cities of Nur Sultan, Akobe, and Almaty, where the Republic Square were closed off and security officers were deployed. Other cities witnessed an increase in police presence in public areas. And then on January 4th, 1,000 people gathered to protest in the center of Almaty, which is the largest city in Kazakhstan. Police used stun guns and tear gas to disperse protesters. Tokayev, the president, signed decrees to introduce a state of emergency in the Mangyatsu district and Almaty from January 5th to January 19th. According to Tokayev, all legitimate demands of protesters will be considered. A special commission, after meeting with protesters, agreed a special commission, after meeting with protesters, agreed to lower the LPG price to 50 tenges, which is 11 cents per liter. Internet watchdog organization NetBlocks documented significant internet disruptions with high impact to mobile services that were likely to limit the public's ability to express political discontent. And people also started protesting in another city in Kazakhstan. Then we get to today, which is what happened and what we are still waiting to see if anything else is happening. And I will look it up to see if there's any other events happening as of right now, because we need to. There is going to be an intervention by the CSTO. On January 5th, Tokayev accepted the government's resignation. On the same day, a Reuters correspondent reported thousands of protesters pressing ahead toward Almaty's city center after security forces failed to disperse them with tear gas and stun grenades. Later on in the same day, Tokayev announced that former President Nursultan Nazarbayev had resigned as the chairman of the Security Council of Kazakhstan, and Tokayev has assumed this position himself. Digital rights monitor NetBlacks reported that internet disruptions had intensified by 5 p.m. local time, leaving Kazakhstan in the midst of a nation-scale internet blackout after a day of mobile internet disruptions and partial restrictions. In Almaty, the offices of the city mayor were stormed and set alight. The protests at the Almaty International Airport resulted with canceled and rerouted flights. In addition, the offices of the ruling Nur-Otan party were also set on fire. Russian state media reported that protesters attacked President Tokayev's home with rifles and grenades, leaving it partially destroyed. In a city in Kazakhstan, a statue of former leader Nazarbayev was pulled down and destroyed by protesters chanting "Old Man, leave." In the late afternoon, Tokayev announced a nationwide state of emergency until the 19th of January. This would include curfew from 2300 to 0700, temporary restrictions on movement, and ban on mass gatherings. During a televised address, the president threatened to crack down on protesters, saying, "I plan to act as toughly as possible," and that he had no intentions on fleeing the country. And then, international reaction is... it caught international observers by surprise. Tokayev began communications with the president of Belarus, who had quashed protests in 2020 and 2021. There was been discussions with the president of Russia calling for the CSTO to intervene against the protesters he described as international terrorists. The prime minister of Armenia, who had just been made chairman of the CSTO January 3rd, 2022, responded to Tokayev's request, saying that as chairman of the CPC Assembly Security Council, I am starting immediate consultations with leaders of the CSTO. Both the United States of America and Russia called for calm, or appealed for calm. The American government was reported by The Independent to be monitoring the unrest. And then, on January 5th, 2022, the European Union issued a statement saying that we call on all concerned to act with responsibility and restraint and to refrain from actions that could lead to further escalation of violence. While recognizing the right of peaceful demonstration, the European Union expects that they remain non-violent and avoid any incitement to violence. Then, we'll go ahead and keep a monitor on the situation to see if there is any updates that we can see on the intervention of the CSTO. But the CSTO has already said that they will send peacekeepers to Kazakhstan, but we don't know when they will deploy or if they will deploy.
Good morning.
Ah, yes, $3 million of flowers.
Sure. I have nothing to learn from so-called Democrats with threatening looks.
Damn, okay. Does anyone know about Kazakhstan asking for Russian troops to intervene? We just talked about it. CSTO has already said that they will send peacekeepers, but it's a matter on when CSTO troops will arrive.
No thanks. I hope you didn't make me come here to hear you discussing your favorite holiday resorts.
Damn, okay. Alright, thank you, Biden. Or should I say Brandon? Did I say Brandon, Mr. Brandon? Look at us dealing with the Brandon administration. Alright, natural gas. Yeah, a $5 billion contract actually won't be that bad. Let's do 561. And let's also add some. You'll also do natural gas. What? Sales. Oh, whale. Oh, God, okay. I was like, what? Purchase price, sale price. Let's do 779. Send that over. Let's see what natural gas is at. So we got 415. Let's increase this to 457. And it's 673. Let's actually lower that to 639. Let's actually do 606. So what we want to do, we want to lower the price of it. That way that inflation doesn't hit us as much as it should. Let's call this the Almaty Agreement. Negotiate that. Contract has been signed. That will last 5 years. It is a total of about $40 billion, less than $50 billion of a 171. So that is going to increase growth, but it will. So we're going to see maybe less than 10% growth. If we can get less than 10%
well done.
growth, then I'm pretty sure we can do pretty good. Kazakhstan will definitely strengthen our economy, but will not have that much of an impact on unemployment. I should have made it for like 3 years. But once we start getting the money from that contract, and then that really starts to hit the economy, then we're going to have to immediately increase minimum wage, and we're going to immediately increase the civil servant salaries, because we're going to get hit by that inflation. Alright. So, what we're also going to do... Oh, yeah. I don't know why I just did that whenever we have really high inflation. What we're going to do, we're going to increase this interest rate to about 15%. And what kind of control over the economy do we have? What about services? Or energy? We need to start investing, thinking about investing in energy. Okay, so look at that, our 12%. Yep. And that is what I was worried about. We just jumped about $20 billion. We're gonna wait for Friday or Monday. It's going down. Unemployment just hit 0.1%, but that should correct. Energy sector, the state is holding the field.
Recent nationalization contributes to the state being viewed as very involved in this sector. This will reflect a responsible and reassuring image of the rulers in place and strengthen its power in some places. But if we had to nationalize on a large scale tomorrow, we would attribute that to authoritarian excesses.
Alright, interest rate increase, and what we're also going to do, because of that contract, we are also going to increase the industrial pollution tax. Should actually help us lower that growth, but also raise a lot of money. And what we're also going to do is that we're going to use that money to invest back into our nation, make things better, actually do the opposite of what we were looking at in the opposite of what's going on in Kazakhstan as of right now. Let's go ahead and look at the causes of death. We have 36% of the Kazakh people dying from heart disease, 14% from stroke, 13% from other types of cancer, and 7.4% off of digestive disease. What about heart disease? What can we do to lower that? We can do an increase in tobacco tax. We can do lowering unemployment, industrial pollution tax, and we can do a agro-food tax. We can also do a higher alcohol tax, and then increase our investment in public health system. And what about suicide? Inadequate social and psychiatric services, inadequate emergency services, and an insufficient quality of public health and unemployment. What about crime? By crime, judicial system, and prison capacity. Wish there was a little more information there. Other types of cancer, what can we do here? Tobacco, alcohol, rich foods, working conditions, and endocrine disruptors. We're also going to increase. Let's go over to civil servant. And we're going to increase salaries. And it's going to cost us about $1 billion. Well, we can afford it. We're also preparing for the worst whenever it comes to inflation, because inflation should actually rebound. We're expecting that it'll go up. And then also with all this extra money, we're going to start rehabilitating our housing sector.
Prospective analysis.
Although you
just doing some other things. Story with oil. We signed a contract, and we are preparing for the inflation. We're preparing for an increase in the inflation. It's interesting we have 20 people watching right now. Alright, let's get back. I was oh god, what happened to my public finances?
The prep
Unless that was because of the increase in the civil servant salary. Not really. It's also because of that really high growth rate. Oh, actually, growth rate went down. We were at 12%, now we're at 11%. Selling coal in early game is practically a universal go-to for me. I usually steer away from contracts. Like, contracts are one of the biggest things about this game that I think a lot of people do misunderstand. But if you play your cards right and then avoid the contracts, you can get your debt to not go up that much. So I only incurred about $2 billion worth of debt in this cycle in this cycle that we just went through.
The bill
The bill has been voted on and the law has been passed. 4.91% unemployment, which is pretty healthy. I mean, we were at like 8. It's like 5, 6, 7, somewhere around there. So we're lowering it. We're lowering it. Sort of. I mean, you can see that it went to 0 and then it went right back up to like 4.9. And that was because of the... I think it was it wasn't... You know, it's funny, I actually completely forgot to look at that economic contract that was signed. When was that signed? Let's go to diplomacy. And I also just realized we have a free trade agreement and an economic contract signed with the United States. What are economic relations doing now? 37. I also have a free trade agreement, so I can't lower trade barriers with them. But what I can do is that I can lower trade barriers with Russia. Lower tariffs with Russia by 25%.
Perspective analysis.
And guys, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you guys want to see more content like this, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss anything on this channel. I'm glad to see a couple of more subscribers on the channel, just noticed that. Aiden, what's up? Nathan, you have a very interesting profile picture. Everyone says I can do better, just like my life.
Here is our growth.
Apparently, 7%. All right, this is actually working out a lot better than I expected. Did I just figure out how to control inflation? Find out in the next episode. I'll just wait for my entire cabinet to step down. Wait, is my unemployment at 7%? Work. 4.6, okay. Help for employing seniors, let's increase that, and then let's increase help for employing young people. We're gonna have to increase that industrial pollution tax a little bit. Get a little bit of more money and to lower growth. Then let's go over to minimum wage. $200. $150. 127. Alright. That'll work. It's Osama bin Laden. Yeah. Okay. Shit. That's what I needed to do. I need to go to Russia. Let's go to Russia. Let's go to electricity. They can give us 1 electricity. Let's invite Russia over for a meeting on the 21st. Let's also go to onshore. Can I get an oil platform? Is the big question here. I can. Let's go for an oil platform. Let's go for... I don't remember PG ever doing anything with military. Most of the time because I avoid military. I don't like to go to... If you've been watching my channel long enough, I don't like to do military action unless I absolutely need to. Because if I do military action and then, you know, I don't want to get involved into a war that I cannot win. Is this a scenario with COVID or without COVID? It is without COVID.
Prospective analysis.
Job, military likes me. So, old people and the military like me, thank God. I don't know what I would do without him. Hyperloop, assassination, Russian mafia, apparently. I did the military action. So, let's go over to tax on industrial pollution. Let's go to 1%. 3.32%. Get us that money. We're still going to be losing some economic growth, but again, works out. We also need to make a space program. In Kazakhstan into space?
No, very
kind.
Listen, don't forget that you're speaking to the head of a state that is much more powerful than yours. Every day I have to deal with extremely complex situations, which is unlikely to happen in your little territorial cocoon. However, your opinion is interesting, as usual.
Alright, thank you. Renegotiate alliance. What was I doing? Oh. Electric video. Electricity. Does not appear to be sufficient. Meet combined needs of your country and Russia's needs. Sales contract. Electricity. Neighboring. 1. Do it for 2 years. Got that. 191, 191, and accept.
You are
Giving our country a big rush of butter. I'd go for a nuclear plant, but I mean, even that's going to be very expensive for me. So I think renewable energy is going to have to be the solution here. At least until we can afford our own atomic nuclear plant, 3rd generation nuclear plant. You can just go for like maybe like 10 of those and then wouldn't need electricity again. So, just that the perfect understanding and great interest Belize Sultan has for our beautiful country. And then, let's go over to diplomacy. Almaty agreements. This was signed March 12th. Let's go over to newspaper, March 12th. And Jordanian head of state. Meeting between Boris Pavlikov and United States Head of State Tom Baden. Perfect understanding, great interest bond Tom Baden has for our beautiful country. And then Kazakhstani and United States Head of State signed historic economic contract between the two countries of $45.1 billion. So the cool thing about this is that if you go in and if you have all of these clauses in your economic treaty, in your trade agreement, so basically the best way to do it, instead of grabbing a calculator and just adding up all of the numbers that you compile into this agreement, and then make it yourself. You can do that if you really want to. Sometimes I like to do it if I'm just bored because it seems fancier. Plus, I'm really curious about it. But what you can actually do is that the next newspaper that comes out after you sign that agreement will actually tell you how much that economic contract was worth. So, for example, even if you're importing and exporting, it will compile up all of the things that were involved in that agreement. So if it's like $10 billion of import and then $10 billion of export, then it'll say a total of $20 billion. So because we were exporting, so we essentially signed a $45 billion contract, and that is the value of the contract that we signed. So I like to do that. Buy some missile launchers. Good idea. We have a national service. Should we get rid of it? $200 million and very small military. Very, very small military.
The preparation.
Army. We will buy some commandos.
The bill has been voted on, and the
law's been passed. We'll see the immediate effects on growth, 2%. 2% was the...
I have a small favor to...
Nope, we are not going to do that. Well, because we're Kazakhstan, we actually probably could. Because the media is controlled by the government. Let's see what else is going on in Kazakhstan. Government calls Russia for help. In pictures, sees government resigns. CSTO agrees to intervene in Kazakhstan unrest. This is a dedicated article. A Russia-led security bloc has agreed to intervene in Kazakhstan's spiraling unrest. First time the organization's 30-year history that it has done so. So this is history in the making here, folks. It's history in the making. That the CSTO is now officially getting involved in a country to make a peacekeeping operation. See, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, or the CSTO, acceded to a request by Kazakhstan President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev on January 5th to send military assistance, which he said was needed to help Kazakhstan overcome this terrorist threat. A few hours later, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, current chair of the CSTO's Collective Security Council, announced that the organization had agreed with Kazakhstan. In light of the threats to national security and sovereignty of the Republic of Kazakhstan, including from external interference, the CSTO agreed to send the organization's collective peacekeeping forces to Kazakhstan for a limited period of time with the aim of stabilizing and normalizing the situation in Kazakhstan. And he said that in a Facebook post. No details were provided. It wasn't immediately clear where the forces would be coming from and what their mission would be. Russian media reported that an aviation regiment in the city of Orenburg, close to the Kazakh border, was on alert to be deployed into Kazakhstan. The CSTO is effectively led by Russia. Its other members states are Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. Article 4 of its charter states that in the case of aggression, an armed attack threatening safety, stability, territorial integrity and sovereignty against any member states, and all other member states at the request of this state shall immediately provide with the latter with necessary aid, including military. In his statement, said that CSTO forces were being sent under the provisions of Article 4 of the CSTO. There's no indication that the popular unrest in Kazakhstan has any external origin. It began over fuel prices in the far west of the country before quickly spreading nationwide. That is the line. Hang on. But that is the line that Kazakhstan's beleaguered authorities have been pushing. Kazakhstan is facing armed aggression from terrorist groups trained from outside the country, its foreign affairs minister said in a statement early in the morning of January 6th. It's the first time that the CSTO had agreed to deploy military forces to support an ally. It has refused requests on at least 2 other occasions from Kyrgyzstan during massive ethnic unrest in 2010 and from Armenia in 2021 as Azerbaijan pushed its post-war advantage by carrying out military incursions into Armenian territory. In the latter case, CSTO took 3 months to respond and ultimately turned down the request. 3 months afterward, even though the Russians had already said that they're going to mediate, so they didn't even need the CSTO by that time. The CSTO was formed shortly after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, but gradually had been expanding its capabilities. It held its first joint peacekeeping exercise in 2012, and has carried out a variety of joint military exercises, most of them under an anti-terror scenario since then. But has often been accused of being a paper tiger because of its repeated failure to prime member states' aid when they requested. It also failed to engender much enthusiasm from non-Russian member states who mostly have seen it as a means of getting discounted Russian weaponry. Why Kazakhstan's situation is one that finally moved the CSTO to action is still unclear, but despite the Prime Minister of Armenia being the man to formally make the announcement, the decision was undoubtedly made in the Kremlin. Just hours before, however, the spokesman for Russian President Vladimir Putin, Dmitry Peskov, said that there will be no need for Russian assistance. We are confident that our Kazakhstani friends can solve their internal problems by themselves, he told the news agency RIA Novosti. The peacekeeping forces are not only military tool that the CSTO has in its kit, it also has chosen more forceful options, including rapid reaction forces. According to the CSTO's official information, its peacekeeping forces total about 3,600 troops from various member states. It does not break those down by country, and its mission is not combat, but post-war tasks like ceasefire monitoring and deconfliction. That's the right way to say it. Whatever the mission, the prospect of external military intervention vexed many Kazakhstanis. Tokayev called the CSTO for help. Horrible decision, wrote a political scientist and a senior fellow at Harvard in a tweet. We don't know what the situation with Kazakh military and security forces is at the moment, but what the level of confusion and the situation with loyalty are, but this appeal undermines the chance to gain legitimacy big time. In Armenia, meanwhile, it was the prime minister who made the announcement, was seen as a bitter irony, given the organization's recent refusal to come to Armenians' assistance. Under the prime minister's initial announcement, he had spoken to Tokayev about his requests. Opposition leader Edmund Marikyan mockingly compared the situation to Armenia's appeal last year. Under apparent Russian casualty, Yerevan held off on making a formal request. I think we should wait for a formal request. For written requests according to CSTO procedure, Markian wrote in a comment at the time, and it gained like 4,000 likes. And that was the end of the article. That was from EurasiaNet. So your Asianet is actually talking about it a lot, so I'm going to bookmark that. Afghanistan needs some basic social assistance because they're denied because they're an opponent of NATO. The environment can be saved through policies that target industrial magnates instead of consumers. Alright. I'm going to continue on for a little bit longer. I think I'm going to go on until 11, and then we're going to call this stream. And I think we're going to continue tomorrow, especially if something big happens in Kazakhstan. And inflation is moderately kind of the same. You can do better. We're going to be looking at our finances for a second. Oh, someone asked something. So started off and said, how much debt percent of GDP is too much? So to answer your question, so so essentially what you're dealing with whenever it's percentage of GDP. So if your GDP is $100 billion, let's take that for an example. Your GDP is $100 billion. You have debt about $10 billion worth of debt. That's 10% of your GDP. Now, the biggest thing, if you've ever had a credit card, the more money that you have on that credit card, if you don't have, an introductory APR or whatever, the more money you have on that credit card, the more interest that card will charge you. So if you have $1,000 on your credit card with a 10% interest rate, which is pretty low, honestly. If you have a $1,000 credit limit, you put $100 on there. 10%. 10% of $100 is $10. So you're going to get $10 of interest per year, by the way. Per year. Because that's APR, annual. So whenever it comes to debt as GDP percentage, what you can do is that you can look at your debt and you can see that you're being charged 5.81% interest on your $9.47 billion loan from the United States. And you get more and more loans as you start to spend money. The biggest thing about this is that if the more you spend on your interest is directly what goes into debt reimbursement, because essentially, if you go over to budget, debt reimbursement is the total amount of money that your country has to pay in interest every year. So those with a lower debt to GDP ratio, like Kazakhstan right here, Kazakhstan has a debt to GDP ratio of 26%. So we have a $182 billion GDP, and 26% of that is debt. So as the United States, we actually look up debts, debt servicing might be it. Debt servicing, yeah. Okay, so debt servicing. We actually have a article that we can see. Let's go over to economy. I don't think we can. So essentially, what my point is that the higher your, the more amount of money that you get from other countries, the more amount of money that you have to spend on interest, the less money you're going to be able to spend on other projects like energy, like like social security, healthcare, education, military. That's the money that you could easily be spending on other types of projects, on energy, on just anything, on high-speed rail even. So that is why one of the best things for you to do is that you should, for one, watch my economic tutorial, and then two, just watch what you spend. And then if you come into a country, so if you're coming in as Greece, if you have paid attention to politics within the past 20 years, you would obviously know that Greece can't afford a high-speed rail from Athens to Corinth. Like, that's just not financially smart. That's just not what you want to do. Or from Patra to Sparta. So if you're coming in, I mean, if you look here, $193 billion. But if you look, the debt to GDP ratio is double, not the same as your GDP. It is double their GDP. So that's over $300 billion with a GDP of $193 billion. Greece owes over $300 billion, including in the game, they owe the European Central Bank like almost $100 billion. I actually think they owe them more than $100 billion. So we actually come up here, economy, total public debt, and we can click on Greece. Okay, well, it's as percentage of GDP. Economic aid, what about budget? $133 billion. Yeah, for Japan. The biggest thing about Japan is that they don't have a very big deficit. Well, actually, they start off with an 11% deficit. But their debt to GDP ratio is 252% of their GDP. And if you look, they have a $5.4 trillion GDP. They are the third largest economy in the world, and they owe double and a half of what their GDP is even worth. Same thing with the United States. And so my main advice whenever it comes to this, and I'll go ahead and shut up about it, my main advice whenever it comes to this is that if you're playing as the United States, if you're playing as Greece, if you're playing as Japan, if you're playing as any country, and my limit, by the way, okay, so to answer your question, essentially, which one is too high? I would say if your country starts off with maybe 80-90% of GDP, and actually that's even too high, so I'm gonna say, like, if your country's debt to GDP ratio is more than 50%, so if it's in between like 55 to 100%, your first priority is to lower your deficit, because once you lower that deficit, you will not incur as much debt as you need to take on. Because if you just kind of go a couple of years just incurring debt, you're gonna have to face that later on down the road. So my advice to that, if your country, again, if your debt to GDP ratio, that is why every single time I start a game, I always go over to budget and I look at this right here. I look at their public debt, actual number of debt. I look at their public debt as a percentage of their GDP. I look at their debt servicing. I look at their budget deficit. I look at their structural deficit, and I'll make a video about structural deficits in the future. And I'll look at their debt deficit in percentage to GDP, and I look at their budget in billions. These are the numbers that you immediately need to check as soon as you start any game in this game in Power and Revolution. Look at that! I went on a rant, and now it's 11 o'clock. So
the bill has been.
All right. Guys, if you guys like this, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you guys want to see more content like this, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss anything on this channel whenever I do make it. If you guys want to join the discussion, join the Discord so you don't miss anything on this channel. And whenever I do come back, we will possibly, next time I play Kazakhstan, it's mainly to discuss, unless you guys want to see more Kazakhstan, it's mainly to discuss what's been going on in Kazakhstan, today or yesterday, January 5th. It's by the time you guys even see this, it's going to be January 6th. It'll also be the 1-year anniversary of the Capitol riot. So, so very interesting day. Very interesting day, indeed. So, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. I'll see you guys in the next video. Can't wait to, if anything else happens in Kazakhstan, we'll do another stream, so do look forward to that. Well, I mean, I'm not telling you to look forward to what's bad happening in Kazakhstan, so hopefully we don't have to return to Kazakhstan if things start to get worse, but if things do start to heat up, I will definitely be covering it on this channel. So, see you guys there. See you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care.